Hey, welcome to this webinar. Today we're going to be looking at content marketing for SEO, and we're going to be asking whether you're doing it right, what you could be doing to get a bit more SEO value out of your content marketing. Just as a quick bit of housekeeping, we are going to be recording this webinar, and the slides and the recording will be available afterwards if you're interested, if you missed anything, so don't worry about going back and checking. You're very welcome to ask us a question. You can do that through GoToWebinar, or you can do that through Twitter. So I will just introduce myself and my colleague. So my name's Ed. I am the Digital Account Manager here at Cuba, and with me today is Chris, who is our Head of SEO.
Hi guys.
So without further ado, Chris, would you like to take it away?
Okay. First, we want to just cover off just the topic in general of content marketing. So it can be used for a number of objectives. You'll all be using it for different reasons. Obviously, the topic of the webinar today is using it for SEO, but we just wanted to cover off content marketing in general. So it can be used for brand awareness, getting top of mind awareness amongst your potential customers, so that once they are in a position to make a decision on a purchase or service, then your brand is right there at the top of mind. It can also be used for just purely driving traffic from social media as a channel. It can be used referral traffic, so you might have content that's getting mentioned on other websites, and people clicking through will drive traffic. But really the topic of today, we're going to be talking about content marketing for SEO, so using content marketing to help your organic search performance. There are really two main areas for content marketing and SEO. So the first one, what we're showing here, is purely optimizing your content to get search visibility and bring in traffic, so getting search listings using pieces of content. And the second one is really the topic of what we're going to be discussing today. It's using your content to earn links, build up authority and trust of your website so it ranks better and gets more traffic.
So it's worth saying that the first of those, optimizing your content to achieve search visibility, is kind of a whole webinar in itself. So yeah, just to outline again, what we're going to be focusing on in this webinar is achieving links to your content, which will boost your SEO rankings.
So just first of all, I want to start with clearing something up. There's a lot of misinformation around about social sharing and its impact on search rankings. It's a bit of a red herring. There's no, certainly currently, there's no convincing evidence really that social shares drive improved search rankings. It is something that I've been delving into. I've written an article that's over on eConsultancy that I'd really encourage you to go and have a read of. It's really quite an in-depth discussion and too much to go into really on this webinar. So it's all about links.
So that is to say, studies consistently show that links are still the most important factor in getting good search rankings. So although social shares have other functions, it's really important to focus on links if you're trying to achieve an SEO benefit from your content marketing.
Absolutely. And when we're thinking links, there is the concept of quality over quantity. It gets bandied around a lot, but certainly in this day and age, you are looking for quality links rather than a quantity of low quality links. So again, that's a real in-depth discussion in itself. Our previous webinar did cover this in large detail. So I provided a link there to you, and we would encourage you to go and listen in on that previous webinar.
Yeah, so that's all about really showing how you can start to assign value to the quality of your links, and how you can start to say, okay, this link is perhaps worth more to us than that link because it has higher scores in certain key metrics. So definitely urge you to take a look at that webinar and think about starting to consider the quality of your links.
What I've provided here is still on the topic of quality, just an example of a report that we do for clients, and it's focused on the quality really of the links that we're achieving to content. And so when your focus is on quality, you'll be reporting and measuring that the links that you're getting are strong enough. There are a couple of metrics on there that mention trust flow, citation flow, technical jargon, but we do cover that off in the other webinar if you'd like to head on over there when you get a chance and listen into that one. So here's just an example of a content campaign that we ran, consisted of 4 pieces of content. It was actually over an 8-month period for one of our clients, and I just wanted to show the effect of earning quality links with your content, and how what you see here on the bar chart is the number of keywords ranking in top 3 positions in Google. So you see that towards the end of our campaign with 4 pieces of content, and then ongoing afterwards, those links that we earned really did help to drive much improved search visibility.
So just to summarize this section really, what you're saying, Chris, is that the KPI, if you are looking to achieve SEO results from your content, needs to be quality links, and it's those links that in the long term will lead to improved keyword rankings.
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking links and we're not talking shares. So in terms of how do we earn these quality links, I just want to mention a study that I found interesting. It's a well-known study in the SEO community. It was performed recently by us, Sumo and Moz, a collaborative effort. I would encourage, I provided the link there, I would encourage you to go and have a read up. But one of the findings I found particularly interesting, and it relates to getting links, is part of the survey, part of the study they did, they analysed 750,000 pieces, and these were well shared pieces of content. So they all had LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook shares. But still, those that were well shared, over 50% of them still didn't have any links. So the conclusion being really that getting links is hard. It's harder than getting social shares. So there really is it's necessary to produce content that is outstanding rather than just good. Good content doesn't really cut it for links. It might get a few shares, it might get you some shares, but in this day and age really, just generally good content doesn't get you links. You really need to be going for something of a higher quality and going for awesome really, for want of a better word. Something that has gained a lot of attention recently, Rand Fishkin, who is the owner of Moz, that's a big brand in the SEO world. He writes a lot on the subject, and something that he talks about is producing content. You've really, this day and age, got to be producing content that's 10 times better than anything else out there. It's a good rule of thumb, something to shoot for. And certainly if you're doing that, your content stands a much better chance of getting the quality links that we need. So in terms of economies of scale, there is economies of scale to be had with achieving links. So really, hoping that this graph summarizes, but often something that we see is a high number of pieces that have not really been given that much time and effort, and they've not really achieved many links. Now, a small number of big pieces are likely to yield much more links. So just something to think about in terms of output and effort that goes into each piece. There are economies of scale. You get more quality links with something that you put more time and effort into.
So just to illustrate that, perhaps instead of spending 2 hours writing a blog post and doing that 10 times to spend 20 hours, you might want to think about whether you could invest that 20 hours in producing one really exciting piece of content that is therefore more likely to get links.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as well as putting a bit more time and effort into producing really strong content, what else can people do to make sure that the content they are producing is getting links?
Okay, well, I'd start with doing research in your niche, extensive research. So you need to be thinking about which websites or content authors write in your niche. These are the guys that you're going to be relying on to link to you. So we can use tools. Here I was looking for a niche as an example. I know that we've got some people attending today that were from the Camping and Caravanning Club, so it seemed like as good a niche as any to provide as an example. So we can use tools to look at the caravanning niche. We can see who is producing content that is getting a lot of attention. So this tool here shows the number of shares for particular pieces of content on caravanning. So we see freedomtogo.co.uk producing content, coachman.co.uk. We can look at which topics we can drill into one of those particular producers and see which topics they favour. What do they write about? What angles do they write about? So I've dug into freedomtogo.co.uk here. We can see the top 2 most shared articles that they've produced around this topic of kind of family and kids. So it highlights a good potential a good topic to write about and get them involved in. You know, if you write about family camping, caravanning, there's a good chance they'll reference the material that you've produced.
Yeah, it's important to say at this point that although we're looking at social media shares here, we're looking at them as an indicator really of what these publishers consider to be interesting and what we can see resonates with their audience. So the content that we're producing is going to be looking to achieve links, but this is a really useful way using social shares as a sort of, you know, a bit of a gauge really to see what is resonating with that person's audience, because obviously if you can provide someone with some content that you know is likely to resonate with their audience, then they're very much more likely to link to it.
Yeah, it's all about what evidence of what they're writing about. So when we look at the content they're producing, we need to be seeing that they do actually link out to third-party information. That's where you're hoping to get a link. So look for evidence that they are going to do that before you reach out to them, perhaps. You can really look at which content types they favour linking to. You know, is it they like a good infographic and they've referenced a number of those in the past, or is it research-based information that they're looking for? We really need to do some in-depth analysis on your niche.
There's no point going to a website that shares loads of really interesting videos if you've got an infographic, because chances are they're going to be less interested in it. You'd really want to achieve a link from them by providing some kind of video content, say.
So another thing to look at during your research, who has a large social following? And these are the guys that are generally known as influencers, bit of a buzzword. but they're the ones who are going to be able to amplify your content, and I'll talk about that shortly. But you can see in this screenshot here, we've got a number of, it's uncovering people's Twitter profiles and the number of followers they have. Really useful stuff when it comes to trying to amplify your content later on. So onto the outreach really. You've produced your content, really happy with it. You really need to hammer the outreach. So you're putting content in front of people who you've identified as writing in your niche. You're contacting them and you're doggedly trying to get them to notice what you've produced. And then you're also putting content in front of influencers, as I've mentioned. And this is all about social amplification. If you can have an influencer share a piece of your content, there is a good chance that the amplification that will provide will lead to more links. So you've got your target list for people who you want to try and get links from, but your social amplification gives you a much better chance that you're going to earn some links from people that weren't even on your radar. So these social influencers are spreading the message on your behalf.
Yeah, I think this is a sort of subtle message that it's quite important to think about in detail, because although we're not looking to achieve social shares for the sake of social shares, because as Chris has said already, those don't really impact your search rankings, the value that social shares can bring in this sort of situation is that they can get your content in front of people who you may not even be aware of, because you may have your list of people you're looking to get a link from, but the social sharing, social amplification can just get your content in front of more people, which increases your likelihood of getting links, really.
So we see this a lot, you'd be surprised. People spending a hell of a lot of time on content, producing something pretty good, and then only promoting it with a single tweet. It's really not going to cut it. There's a rule of thumb.
See what you did there. Yeah.
Apologies. Spend as much time on your outreach as you did creating your content. If you've labored over creating something amazing, it's not going to get found by itself. You need to put as much time into the outreach in order to get it in front of the people who are going to link to you and the people who are going to give you these good links. So as a final slide here, I got in touch with Izzy, who's our outreach specialist here, and I just asked to grab one of her spreadsheets that shows her prospects for outreach. The names have been blanked out to protect the innocent, but I just wanted to highlight the number of lines on this spreadsheet. So there's 269 people that she had on the radar to reach out to spread the word about a particular piece of content. So it's just really just to hammer home that you need to be putting in the legwork if you want to get the links that hopefully your content deserves.
It's a numbers game as well. If you think about it in terms of, you might contact 100 people, of those only half of them might open your email, of those only half of them might reply to you, and so on and so on. If you think about it like that, you can easily see how a list of 200 or 300 people can quite quickly, it can yield relatively small numbers of links. Because inevitably you're going to have people who are too busy or not interested or all that sort of thing. So it really is a numbers game, and it's worth doing your research to identify a large number of people that you're interested in getting links from. Okay, thanks very much for that, Chris. I'm just going to run through some key takeaways from this session. So point number one, there's currently no evidence that social shares help your rankings. It's worth reading Chris's e-consultancy article about this. I think it is an important thing that a lot of people still don't fully understand. Getting links is hard. You need really, really good content, and you also need dedicated outreach time if you're going to achieve quality links. That's worth bearing in mind. Third point, there are economies of scale to be had. As we've said, you'll often see that a really large, exciting piece of content that really gets people interested is likely to achieve a lot more links than several smaller pieces which maybe aren't as groundbreaking, don't look as visually appealing, and so on. And the final point is that you need to research your niche really thoroughly to see who is linking to what kind of content and really try and get under the skin of why those people are linking. Are they linking because they know that your content is likely to appeal to their target audience, for instance? So there are lots of ways you can try and research that and understand why people might want to link to you, and then you can offer them something that is useful to them, something that their readers will enjoy, and ultimately something that they'll want to link to. Okay, so if you have any questions, you can fire them to us through the GoToWebinar functionality. We've had one through already. So Michael says, you've been talking about link quality, Chris. Is there any concrete way of sort of valuing one really good link against, say, 50 low quality links?
I think that really comes down to the webinar that we've been cross-referencing that I'd encourage you to go and have a look at, Michael, and it's about using tools. There are third-party metric providers, in particularly Moz and an outfit called Majestic, formerly Majestic SEO. They provide scoring metrics that are about authority of the linking website and also the trust of the linking website. So what you want to be doing is looking for high score linking websites, and what you'll see is that sometimes some of the, I think you mentioned 50 low quality, you'll notice that the authority and trust scores on some of the links on the spammier end of the spectrum are very, very low. So you need to be aiming for these high score links, and in particular from sites that have topical relevance.
Okay, great. Thanks for that. Jess has asked, you talked about the survey that says links are a lot harder to get than shares. Do you need to be producing different types of content to get links? What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, something, again, I encourage you to go and look at the BuzzSumo study that I referenced. In there are some interesting takeaways about the type of content that gets shares, the type of content that gets links. And it does align with what we've tended to see. Often the more kind of throwaway types of piece of content, things like quizzes, that kind of thing. The studies showed that they get a lot of shares, but really there's no value in people linking to that type of thing. The type of thing that got links, interestingly, was, and it all boils down again to effort, but some of the types of content that they highlighted were things like groundbreaking kind of opinion pieces, and research-based pieces in particular. And that makes a lot of sense, because when people are giving links within their own content, often what they're doing is sending people off to kind of find out for more information. Why not go through on this link and find out more? So the stuff that tend to get links is very meaty, information-rich type content. So I hope that helps.
Great. And we've had a question from Ashley who says, as a rule of thumb, after how long would you typically expect to see results from a content outreach program?
It all depends really on the quality of links that you're achieving and the competition that you're up against. To be perfectly honest, if you've got quite a long way to go in terms of building up the authority and trust of your website compared to your competitors, then it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time getting these quality links in order to improve your link profile and achieve a domain that can compete with the competitors. So so I'm sitting on the fence slightly here, but it's kind of, I'd say 6 months plus as a very rough guide.
Okay, great. Right, well, that is just about it for the questions we've had. Thanks very much everyone who has sent those in. As I mentioned at the start, there will be a recording of this webinar being circulated and it will be available on SlideShare if you want to look at the slides. So all the links and everything you need will be available if you want to read in a bit more detail. Okay, thanks very much for attending everyone. We hope that's been useful for you, and there will be a feedback form after the webinar, so we'd really appreciate your feedback, and thank you very much for listening.
Cheers guys.